All right, so recording started a couple minutes late. We did roll call and only missing Commissioner Wood. We did our land acknowledgement, so we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which I can't see. Okay. Look at that. Okay, is public comment and no review agenda and draft minutes. We're not doing draft minutes, so I guess we can take that off the agenda. But for today, we have a land use application to review. We're going to talk about items in progress, so the work stuff on our work plan we're still working on, and then talk about some updates I've made to the work plan itself. And then for next, we have some next steps and updates. And I think we were hoping, I proposed tentatively, if anybody's interested in going out and getting a drink after for like a end of season, it's my last meeting. Go to the public house for a drink if anyone's up for it. We can check. I'll let you think on that. We'll see. And if nobody can go, that's totally fine. All right. So moving on to I don't think we have any public comment.
No public comment.
Okay, great. So let's go to land use application for 845 5th Street.
Alrighty. Yeah, so we received an application for 845 5th Street. Seen here, and I was trying to articulate the page, but it doesn't want to do it now. Basically, this back space is a studio area. The conversion of that space to an ADU requires that they add about 4.5 feet off the back for a separate bathroom. We had our DRC meeting today on this, and I deemed it incomplete, so we do not have elevations that were submitted along with it. And that was something that Shannon pointed out as well in her initial review. So they will have more time now before that 120-day review clock begins to provide the missing information. So that's where that stands currently. Everything else initially, as far as the ADU standards goes, looks good, but any historic feedback is appreciated.
So we've gotten, has the commission seen Shannon's comments? I can't remember if everybody got them.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I can pull them up.
Well, we could, or one idea, since they haven't started their time yet, would be to just email those out so people can think on them, and maybe at the next meeting, if there might be updated plans and context to include all at once.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Does that sound good to everyone? Okay, so we'll just kind of postpone review then until the January meeting. Does that seem like that will fit in the window? Okay.
Yeah, we, especially because we have not deemed it complete yet, which we would still likely have time. That would be 30 days knocked off until the next meeting, but it hasn't started yet. So I think we're
okay.
Yeah.
You have a. Oh, thank you.
Charlotte, yes.
When the application is updated, do you know if there will be a requirement for some photos? There's just not a lot that we can see from the right of way.
Yes, hopefully some photos will come in with that. Let me try to get to street view. And again, this is taking place off the back, so any photos they can provide us that are at the rear of the property would be extra helpful. That's 845 there. Yeah, just for posterity, what it looks like now compared to what they're proposing, I think some further photo documentation would be helpful.
Yes.
I guess to the addition, assuming there's nothing radically different than what they've submitted, I have no problem with the 4.5 feet addition. And unless it somehow comes to tower over the rest of their house, which I don't see them installing a clock tower in the back of their property. So
4 feet.
yeah,
Would be very narrow.
yeah.
Okay, that's good. Did anybody have questions? I guess that's a good opportunity now too, if you've reviewed it and have questions. Yeah.
Since it is at the back of the house, I just wanted to get some clarification. I haven't done very many of these. our responsibility is largely things that the public would be able to see from the street, isn't that correct?
Those are the things that are most likely to make the house not eligible, and impact the historic significance of the structure, I guess.
I remember at one point we were doing exclusive, like if you can't see it, it basically doesn't matter. And the city attorney said that she was going to get with, I can't remember which planner it was, because she was like, I don't think that's actually entirely correct.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And I don't know that we ever got clarification on that. I would love some clarification on what she was seeing,
yeah,
in terms of our approach to, well, if you can't see it from the right of way, it's basically okay.
yeah. And every time we get clarity from the lawyers on things like this, we should find a way to like loop it into like our working document, or because it does seem like they come up so rarely that it's
Right.
like, oh, I remember 2 years ago
Yeah.
that we had a question like this, or the Windows thing comes up a lot. So kind of having a guidance document would be pretty cool.
Well, I don't
mean-
think that the guidelines that we're supposed to follow specifically say that if something's out of sight, it's not relevant. I think we're supposed to apply the guidelines to any part of the structure, but then the guidelines themselves are heavily weighted to kind of the exterior and the facade and those things that really communicate the character of the properties.
Yeah, the only really, I mean, the guidelines for additions, like they should be made on the rear of the building. Generally the same roof type and pitch, shouldn't overwhelm the scale of the building. Should be compatible but distinguishable from the original building. But then the most maybe specific thing would be addition should be made so that if the addition were ever to be removed, there's minimal damage to the original structure. But I suspect that the studio that's on the back was an addition already.
Yeah, looks like it.
And in this case, since the gable is going that direction, really, you could probably pull it off. It's not like they're doing some massive intervention with the roof framing or something to try to weave it in or whatever.
Any other questions or comments about the application?
Unsolicited design feedback on this.
It's gonna be tight in there.
It would be whatever. It's viable. It could be better. Slight tweaks.
I think that's outside our regulatory authority.
So not seeing any further hands on the line. I think we're good.
All right, so we have a couple items listed under our current work plan tasks. So Celine, you're on for walking tour guides. Do you have an update?
Yes, and so I think I talked about trying to maybe just have us talk about 3 of these every meeting. I thought that I had printed more copies of this than I did, but I did not. So I do have a Google Doc that I could share if that would be helpful. I will share that over so folks on Zoom are not left out. Give me just a moment. And also so that I can see what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna try to drop this into the chat.
I can open and share a screen. Probably, I guess I'm joining.
I put it in the chat,
Oh,
which I realize I probably shouldn't have now. It's okay. I will send an email as well after the meeting. Although if you would be able to screen share it, I think that might be helpful.
from the link. in the chat.
Yeah,
And it will be memorialized.
yes. Okay, yeah, that's accurate.
Wait, that probably didn't go to my personal one. Do you need to sign in? too?
I just put it, well, so I just put it, I think it should be viewable if it's. Yeah. Let me, okay,
Could you just email it back?
yeah, I'm.
Got us a new computer in here today.
On that, if not, if that's easier, Tom, you're not like. it's on the computer. I guess.
You both should have an email.
It's gotta download all of your messages coming.
Okay, let me also make sure that was sent. Okay. Oh, okay. I think it should just be that link up at the top, the Google Docs link.
It's gonna make you sign in anyway.
And it's just gonna take.
Okay. Won't be that hard.
You share it from your phone on the Google, since you're like.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. It's possible. Let's find out. Share. Cannot share screen while another participant share.
I share.
Okay. Well, sorry, folks, that this is so difficult. It kind of screen. Okay. Now I'm just sharing a broadcast of the Zoom. Let's see if this will help. Can we see it? Okay, great. So I thought a manageable way to handle this might be for us just to go through these sort of in sets of 3, talk a little bit about the current text and about whether we would like to continue to include these houses. So I just started at the start of the document, pasted the current text in here. I also included, I did a little bit of research on other resources and text on these that I thought we might want to think about drawing from. But let's go ahead and just start by talking about the Coffin House at 922 B Street. I think this is one we actually may have recently done some form of application for.
Yes. Yes, we did.
And I thought it looked pretty good as is. I think the current text on it has some context on person who constructed it, as well as a little bit of information on the features. I don't know if we want to think about making any edits. I do know that when I went on the walking tour with my husband, he did comment that he did not know what the gambrel roof is, and I found that I didn't actually know how to explain that. So we might want to consider if that's something that we can make a little bit more accessible to casual walking tour participants.
What might be interesting is to do like a page or two at the beginning of the walking tour book that shows, yeah, like basic architectural style, like basic roof forms, and I know. I don't know, Charlotte, you might have had a book. Or maybe I have a book.
Yeah,
There's
we've
some-
got some good options.
Yeah, you had something with like your worksheets or something for the stuff you did. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So one option is there is a book that is sort of the essential resource for this. So if we can get permission to just draw, like to reproduce some of those images, that would be great. Or we can, one of us who feels good about their sketching skills could put something together with original sketches pretty quickly. If we know, it's useful to start by figuring out which key terms we want to illustrate, because otherwise it will quickly become massive. But the essential book is Virginia McAllister's Field Guide to American Houses. And I've got a copy here, and there might be one at Jenna's office, but I might have also taken it back. Sorry, Jenna.
Yeah, I might have a copy of that too. There's also, I mean, I could also bust out like miniature little 3D like massing models in SketchUp or something that just shows you shape or something. If we can't reproduce that. Oh yeah. We do have, it's pretty basic. There's a little bit in the, I don't know, in the design guidelines. We could probably do slightly better.
Yeah.
I think that would be a really good way to address that. It might help, and I could, before next meeting, I could just go through and read this and see what terms sort of stick out as maybe things that I would find confusing.
We could even have like one page of like little diagrams and one page of just like really brief like vocabulary, like real quick.
Mhm. Another way to make the document accessible might be just to add another like context clue in the text. So instead of saying a gambrel roof, it could be, a gambrel roof shape or something like that speaks to gambrel roof type, just to indicate that that's the context of the word.
Yeah, I like that too. Overall, though, I think this is a pretty good one. I think we'd just be looking to folks for direction on, does everyone like this? Is there anything we want to think about changing or adding? Do we think it should be included?
How fussy do we want to get? So there's no second E at Kelly on Booth Kelly Mill. And then it's a little weird, the wording of like the house features a gambrel roof, forming a 2-story plan. The word forming feels a little odd to me. I don't know if we want to get all words for it, but
why don't, because we all have this document.
yeah.
Although I would bet you that the second E on Kelly is probably Google autocorrect.
Yeah.
We all have this document, so I think something that might be helpful is just if you want to go back and see if you want to change the words on it, we could bring that back next meeting. Cool.
Should we use the like track changes or the commenting function in looking at that document?
How to do that.
Don't look at me like that. I'm not an attorney.
Do we think it might be better if we just did that via email?
Happy to do whatever y'all want to do.
Or just bring comments.
Yeah, or just bring, and Adam?
Yeah, are you married to those pictures? Is there a way that we could potentially focus more on the actual structure and exclude the vehicle?
Yeah, so these pictures actually are, I found them on Wikipedia, which, as I mentioned, I think has better photos than we currently have in the walking tour document. We could certainly take our own. If that's
once we
something we want.
rework this, we could like actually just schedule a time with the photographer and reach out to the homeowners and be like, hey,
Mhm.
we're gonna redo the walking tour guide. We'd love to take pictures. Can you just like tidy up for this day, make sure the trash is out, like not in the front and move your car and blah, blah, blah.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and something else that I brought up when I started working on this is I think we want to reach out to the homeowners and make sure they're actually aware they're in the walking tour. And so this could be a really good way to facilitate that outreach.
People staring at our house.
Yeah.
You have no idea?
Pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that is something that I hope will be part of this project is maybe opening up a little bit more of a line of communication.
Yeah, things like license plate numbers and stuff are probably.
And just
Uh-huh.
getting the car out of the
Car
way.
Yeah.
access, yeah. I have a BMW or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
girlfriend, this is where the address is.
Well, and I think something else too that might be valuable through that would be to offer them the opportunity to share what they like about their house.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Um,
A little quote.
Yeah.
Like personal comments.
So yeah, I think that would be cool to think about including once we sort of get to that step of actually putting together a new document.
Question real quick, where the resources there you have there, or contain your obituaries for James Wilbur, was that in the document before? Did you-
No, so I just pulled that. I did a quick, by no means do I have excellent research skills. I did a quick Google search of the homes and the people mentioned, and pulled up some information that came up through that search. My recollection is that this resource was just a little bit more information about Mr. Coffin. I didn't see anything there that I thought we should include. The other resource I put at the top of this document that's a resource that I looked at was the National Register of Historic Places nomination that we sent in. That's also available online. And I did in the next house, I pulled some text from that to see if that's something we want to think about, including something from or referencing as well. I think we are all good on this house unless anybody has any other thoughts, and we'll come back with more wordsmithing perhaps next meeting.
One other thought, just formatting the whole document, you know, since there are no rules at this point.
Yes.
Would be providing that homeowners aren't uncomfortable with it. Like having this sort of facade street view, but also popping a drone up there and getting the site, like, cause like really the context of the site, how it's busy, you know, like. Sometimes they have full yards or whatever,
Yeah.
outbuildings, just getting the top view, front view, side by side on the page would be pretty cool, cause you can't see that necessarily walking by. Obviously, some people might be weirded out by it, but.
Yeah, I think that's a
That's
cool.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool to think about, you know, you're right, we have a lot of freedom to re-envision what this document looks like, and think about, you know, are there other secondary photos we might want to include for any of these, and I think that's a cool idea for that.
Amazing, we had floor plans, but we don't.
I also have a little bit of, like, I don't know that I would want a floor plan of my home just handed out to the public. No, I just, but do you want people to know that level of detail? Just, it might depend on who you are. Okay, we will move on to the next one. Is this pronounced Kesey or Kessie? Okay,
It looks like
Easy,
Cassie.
right?
the house at 858 A Street. I just refreshing my memory a little bit on this. I think this one is once again one where maybe there's a few terms in there.
1/1 or 4/1.
Yeah.
They're getting us all new audio and stuff under this.
Yeah, I think this is one where there's maybe a few terms in there that I didn't feel like I had very much familiarity with, and that we might want to try to explain a little bit more. I do think that could be well taken care of by something at the start. Yeah, specifically the extensive use of the word fence straight in this, I think is maybe a little, could be dealt with by some wordsmithing. Yes. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna try to rework that for a future conversation. Because I think that is unnecessarily complex. And then the piece on this, I also wanted to check with folks on, in the nomination form, we provide a little bit more information about the owner of the property in the 1930s. I think there's an interesting connection there with it being the publisher of Springfield News. And I wondered if we wanted to talk about perhaps including that as well.
I think that would be great. You know, one of the sort of interesting things about these walking tours is always if you're reading a description of the building, but you're also looking at a picture of it and you're also standing in front of the building, then what is the physical description of it teaching you that your eyes are not already seeing? And maybe they're expanding your kind of vocabulary or ability to read a building, which is valuable, but anything we can add about the lives of the people who lived here and kind of what the building represents beyond architectural vocab, I think is great. Yeah, even if it's just something small.
Yeah, I think that one's fascinating.
Cool. I will work on rewriting this a little bit.
Yeah, if we could figure out when they actually vacated the property, it'd be easy just to be like H. Elmer Maxey
Yeah,
and his wife. Well, or lived in the property from 32 through whatever 87. Maxey was the.
I also consider myself to be somewhat of a window nerd, and I've never heard of a crossbuck window, so that's exciting. Might be learning something new today.
so that, yeah. And then I guess the other piece, and this is a little bit hard for me to evaluate, so I may be looking to the folks who have a little bit more expertise in the room, is just making sure that we think that the homes included here, we feel add a diversity of value of different architectural styles. That I think might be something for us to think about as we work on this document, because I don't believe there's any sense in which we're obligated to include or not add in terms of locations on the tour.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'd say that's something we evaluate at the end, probably, unless it's just like literally a hot garbage, like as we look at like modern fiction, it's like, oh god, you know, like it's really run down or something.
Yeah. One thing that might be nice at the front, and I can't remember if the document does this at all already. I'm saying something already does, but a little introduction to the Washburn district as a whole. So like, you know, I think in the register or the listing, there's some context there for how it was, you know, founded as like a lumber like community, and the housing is reflective of the I don't know, Charlotte. But yeah, like the industry at the time and how that influenced how it was developed and why you see the building types you do, and maybe what some of those top two or three building types that we see in Washburn as a result. Or theme. Yeah,
We just basically did a spin-off expanded version of that little blurb for chapter of the Historic Atlas for Vancouver Museum. So we have like a really nice chapter intro we just wrote about the Washburn neighborhood. We could probably just coach it.
yeah. Cool. And the other thing I was thinking was the museum. We should check in with them, or if you have a chance to talk to them, because they're the ones who've been handing out the guide, talk to the people who use the guide.
Yeah.
They probably have some really good suggestions
Yeah.
for how they think people would use it, and also for things like resources. If we want to reference things, they might have. There's probably way more. No, okay.
There's almost no well, there's very few historic photos of any of these houses,
Okay.
but
Or like if we were linking the sites, which ones might be the most reliable and sites that aren't going to change in years.
Well, and I don't know that we want to include it, other than I handed you all a document with a bunch of links that's printed. I don't know that we want to actually create a document to hand to the public
Right.
that has a bunch of links. I mean, we might be able to look at, do we want to do a QR code to something? But in some ways, I think we also need to think about this as a document that can function on its own as just a handout. Okay, I have one more of these on the list, which is the Flannery House. I thought this looked pretty good. I think I did have a question about the window panes that I feel like I had trouble identifying. But I think otherwise I thought this looked good, and I appreciated that it had a little bit of history about the people who built the home as well.
Yeah, it's hard to say about the window panes on the dormers because they're so painty, like you. I don't know if it's-
Well, and I did the tour and didn't feel, but I don't know if I knew what I was looking for.
Yeah, like in the little dormers.
Yeah, so I'd wondered about keeping that. I'd also wondered about the last sentence where we just inform people that the second floor contains a library. I just wasn't sure really of if people would be interested in that detail or find it just sort of
Does it even include a library still? That seems like something you could take out.
Or like it could say like it
Tomorrow.
originally included a
Right.
Yeah.
library, but like, for example, the second floor originally contained a library. Inside, original woodwork is found with built-in shelving and an elaborate staircase. Like if those were just flip-flops,
Yeah.
it makes more sense. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just sort of weird ending.
Well, and I was like, I can't go in and see the library, so.
We have to know that it was original.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it does say original woodwork, so I do like maybe just flip it, take the library thing out at the end. So yeah, that's what I had on the first three of these that I looked at. My hope is to keep sort of bringing three of these to us every meeting so we can talk about what we think.
How many there are? Have you counted? I ask because it could be worthwhile. I'm expanding our letter to homeowners. It could be worthwhile. We ask them if we can include them. We ask them if we can take pictures, possibly including drone, and we submit to them this chunk of text from either the current one. So this is the old text. Are there any? Are these correct?
Glaring
Are there
problems.
Any,
Yeah.
are they still accurate? You know, and or we can submit them our proposed text and say, you know, does this make sense? Is it still accurate or whatever? And let them sort of be a part of the process.
I have a quick comment that I guess I don't know much about these houses, but I take that third house to be a pretty fancy, expensive house. Just that would, you know, the carport and the library, is that true? I mean, it looks like a nicer house than most of the others I've seen.
Don't know.
With 2-story and so forth.
It certainly seems to have a lot of, it seems to be a large house and it seems to have a lot of details.
It probably wasn't just your basic mill worker. Yeah, it was the
Right, yeah,
pharmacist.
pharmacist.
Yeah, pharmacist.
How many shacks have a library?
Yeah.
It
one
is a
thing-
really
Familiar with it.
unusual style for this area too, so as a curiosity, it's definitely worth including, but it'd be interesting to figure out why the builder decided that that was the style they were going with. It's kind of interesting.
Well, it's also, I noticed it was later than a lot of our other houses. It was 1920 was when it was constructed versus some of the earlier ones are like very early 1900s. So I wonder if, yeah,
Right. One thing that we should probably add to the description is rather than calling it a colonial style, it is a colonial revival style with a capital R.
I would not have known that. Very helpful.
Riffing on the original like colonial period. Right. So anyway.
And then I think the other thing I might mention, just for us to be sort of thinking about as we work on this, is if there are other things that were not included in the original document that we might want to think about highlighting about the district and the people who lived there. I'm not really sure what the thought process was that went into picking these houses, but I think if there are ideas that we want to make sure are included or highlight additionally, I think that would be helpful for us to consider.
On the previous house, it might also be interesting to do a little sleuthing and then include something about the fact that it's currently used as a business. Right?
Hmm.
It's a insurance company now, it's not a private.
Yeah.
person. It may
Well,
just be a matter of asking the business, like, hey, how long, did you rent this take this over from another business, or did you turn it into a business, or?
And I think that's true of both of the last two.
I didn't.
It
I'm-
looked like- I mean, there was a sign up,
Calling-
what did that sign say? The last one.
I don't
The
remember
second
what it
one, yeah,
is.
the insurance.
Yeah, I don't remember, the Flannery House is just across the street from where we are right now. And I
Yeah.
believe it's a business. I don't
Like
recall what it
is that-
is.
Acorn was over on. Over here. It's for sale.
Is it? I don't know. Yeah,
On the
I'm thinking
spring
it was a
side.
management company or something.
Right.
I could be wrong.
Oh, no, I know what you're thinking about. So yeah, I think that could be kind of a cool thing to include, because I think some of these have changed in their use, and I believe there is one property in the historic walking tour guide that was originally a business and is now a residence.
Oh,
And trust.
that market, no, that one was.
Oh, that might have been, I may
There's a
just-
Hospital that's now residential.
yeah.
And the McMurray store is
Yeah, that's
now,
awesome.
now
It's
got
a-
like 12 units in there or something, if I
Yeah.
remember right. Mhm.
So that could be kind of cool to also.
Mhm.
Personnel systems.
No, that's-
Serving our
Since
community, so
1984.
we know it was a commercial property and, well, if they haven't moved,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So I don't wanna take up too much of our time, that's what I have today, I will bring you back more next month. Although I'm realizing I might need to pick up the pace to get this done within the time that this historic commission term is.
Thank you for sharing the document too, so we can help out as needed.
Yeah, one strategy could be you could assign a few to each commissioner. That would be.
Well, and so my thinking, the reason I wanted to break it up is that I think it's a lot for us to go through in a meeting.
Yeah.
And so less so than in terms of me, although there is in terms of my research time, I think there's also a question of how much time do we want to devote to this per meeting? And I felt like 3 or 4 seemed reasonable. I felt like trying to go through the whole document would be a problem unless we wanted a special meeting for it.
Is that something we could
Could do.
form a new subcommittee on and have a breakout for?
I think we talked about a subcommittee and I think I just then became busier than I anticipated. So I can reach back out about that too.
Be on that subcommittee if as long as
Yeah,
it doesn't
I
start
would
until
too.
maybe mid-January.
Me too.
I need to sign off for today. Sorry to leave early, guys. You still have quorum, right? You're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, great. See you next time. Thanks.
Bye. All right, moving on. So, yeah, what's next?
We're gonna go to educational opportunities with, next we're gonna go to visioning for the next work plan. That's what we're gonna do.
That's funny. All right, so I did take a shot at going through our work plan and updating it, and I wanted to I'm gonna share the screen. Cause I meant to get it out to you before this meeting, but that didn't happen, so I will get it out to you after. I share. Oh, there it is. All right. So, it is currently in a Word document and, I made a couple of revisions as I was going through it. So and I wanna just make sure everybody's aware, you know, it's structured, so when you're looking at it, you can look at it through that lens. I'm making it a 2-year work plan, in part because that just makes sense with our grant cycle, and we don't meet frequently enough to like really. So the idea would be that every 2 years, the Historic Commission could create a new work plan, and then on the end of the first year, you can revisit and update the grant proposal accordingly, if need be. I'm highlighting sections that I think the commission could talk a little bit more about before finalizing this, so subcommittees, are just flexible. I mean, we can just change this to say subcommittees are as needed. Last time we had specific ones listed, but we're not really using those currently, so that's outdated text. And then I created a section called General Historic Commission Tasks. And we kind of already covered what those are, but just general administration, our application review process, and our handbook guidelines that will eventually be created and then continually be updated going forward, but that's in there at least. And then the next section is really what I'm calling the work plan. And those are items that are covered that require, they're special projects basically, and primarily driven by our grant. But we might occasionally seek additional funds if we have capacity and decide to do that. So basically a lot of these revisions are geared towards making it align with the grant better, because that was problematic last time with like how I created the work plan and then we applied for the grant and then we realized that the two didn't really speak to each other. So hopefully they speak to each other better. I've listed at the top here the categories that are listed in the grant, at least as of now. So survey, design, pre-development, development, planning, review and compliance, public education and other, and then I provided a link to, you know, read about what those categories are. And then we could just create those categories under this and list the projects that fall under those categories so that they align really nicely. So for the ones that I have in for now, I've taken out budget information and that's stuff that you all, I think in the next meeting, maybe want to go through and figure out what your priorities are and how much you want to allocate towards each task. But for now, I have the phase 2 RLS in there. And I have implementing the Heritage Awards, so maintaining that program as a task. I did make a note in there that, you know, there's a couple outdated things in here about as far as, you know, we were talking about whether or not, this may be too much detail, just remove potentially, but we were talking about whether or not 3 awards need to be provided. And I made a note in here just that I personally am recommending that we put a hold on the second award until more clarity is made, but obviously I won't be here, so you all can decide what you want to do.
I mean,
But-
it could also be the history maker, like history maker work has the whole it's under, right? Like one is kind of just like legacy, like
Yeah,
versus the like thinking forward one, which is the controversial one.
right.
So it could be that we just limit it to more of that legacy, like it's basically still a person versus the project, right? Because
Mhm.
preservation is a project, but history maker is still more of like we at least capture that legacy award for somebody that's
Yeah.
made a significant impact on whatever town, historic district or serving as the historic commission director. So never needed there.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that conversation, I just flagged it because that conversation is in progress, but there isn't clarity on what's happening with that second award yet. Training and education, we always have money allocated there, so I left that in there as well for now, but highlighted text, because you might have discussion about what you want that to include. And then I'm working on right now, just kind of cleaning up the budget so that you can populate it easily to match whatever tasks you decide to add. So that budget would follow the tasks that basically we're proposing to put into the next grant. And we should be able to find out soon how much we can apply for. I think it's 13,000 to 15,000. But so next meeting, you'll want to know like how much grant is available and how much you can allocate to each of these projects.
And Tom, are you in touch with Curry in a way that will make that handoff sufficient? Okay,
Yeah, I'm still.
'Cause I
waiting
don't
for
at
those
all.
for the-
okay. I just want to make sure it's
Yeah.
not.
And that
for
was
you.
something I had kind of thought about on my drive over here is at the bottom of this. I should just for handoff purposes, I should just note who points of contact have been for different things. So, even though we all know Shannon, but like just put her contact information. Well, I don't, maybe if we're posting this on our website, I don't want to do that. I'll do it somehow.
Yeah.
I will provide that to you. The other one was Dr. Lewis. He has kind of an outstanding proposal for doing the Indigenous history of Springfield. So passing the buck on that conversation. And then there was another great. Oh, and then the Willamette Cultural Resource Associate, the consultants who did our last survey, and the contact info for them. You can always just ask me, but it'd be nice if I was organized and put that out to you. Then there's a list of projects that were like ones that we were considering really moving forward on. And so there's little descriptions on these that are still a little bit outdated, but the education awareness. So these are the ones that we'll want to like, at the next meeting, you'll want to talk about what ones we're actually going to bump up into the budget. That's going to be a hard decision, I think. So I will send, once I get this fully cleaned up, I'll send it out for discussion. Elise, do you want me to send it just to you to review a little bit in
Sure.
case you want to change anything and get it?
At
Yeah,
least all the old text out of there.
yeah, and then send it off to the commission before the next meeting maybe. And then documenting the other projects that are like inspirational, long-term visionary things that we would like to accomplish, just so they're in there. When an opportunity arises, we can bump that up. So, hopefully that makes it easy going forward. Yeah. Trying to simplify it and streamline it a little bit from what it was. 6 pages, it could be shorter, but trying to be concise. So yeah, that's before end of year, I'm committed to kind of making the final cleanup on that and getting it out for Elise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So any questions or requests related to that? Commissioner updates. Starting in January, I'll be the new chair, and Celine will be the new vice chair. One update. Any other updates from the city?
That, let's see. That's our last application that we have in right now. Other than that.
Okay. No, updates from projects. Interesting.
Well, I can do some quick cross pollination for museum committee, just quickly. We've got, the atlases, we're doing a huge push right now, trying to get it like ready to send to publishers by the end of the year. So it won't be a Christmas present, but like, early next year, hopefully we'll be ready with it. And then, also the illuminations exhibit that the museum puts on, this is the 3rd annual. The opening of it is this Friday. Poster on the wall.
I have it in my.
Yeah, I think it's 5:30 on Friday at the museum, and then there's like an after party at OG Studios over on the Hog. If you would walk by the front of the museum, there's a flyer in the window for sure. It's probably still out in the hallway somewhere. And the internet, which is the internet. Projects downtown. I mean, if anybody ever wants to like wander through a construction site with a hard hat and a vest and feel really official and maybe climb on the roof. You're welcome to pop in. I can show you the 448 main project anytime. Shoot me a text, yeah. It's good times.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah, I'll give you my number. You should just, that's me. And then, what else? The school is kind of floundering, but still moving forward. Yeah. There's good snowflakes up downtown. They look adorable. I love the snowflakes. I'm like non-biased in any way. They're just such happy little snowflakes.
Are you still doing anything with the Bruce Kelly group?
The makers group.
Yeah.
So we've kind of put a pin in the have every quarter, or every month, cause like the turnout was just getting so low. So we really need to, we've been, cross-posting a bunch of things about makers markets and things that are happening seasonally, and, if there's something useful, like, that we can connect people, we do, but we're trying to figure out how we can restructure it to make it more active, like, do we do less, like, just quarterly meetups or something, and maybe we can, like, have a more active, like an activity that's involved with it or something, versus it just being like happy hour. So open to suggestions, but also just specificity. Yeah. Cool. But if you have interest, hit me up.
The elimination exhibit is 5:30 to 7:30 at the Springfield History Museum. If anybody wants to go. Feel free to information about the after party, I'm sure.
The next item, just want to make sure the council or the commission is aware, council has committed themselves in the ordinance to solicit members from William and from Springfield schools. And just wanted to make sure that that's okay with everyone to move forward with trying to get them to solicit. If there are any big objections to trying to get that how best we can. I know we've had some struggles in the past, but
I've already been soliciting.
Yeah.
I think there's a potential couple. Of
it's
that if I can get somebody that I was try to keep that.
it's strangely written too. It says that council shall solicit recommendations, but then it talks about appointees of other Springfield public agencies, like they maybe get to appoint and not just recommend.
I don't read that. Well, you're the one who's almost an attorney. I'm gonna stop.
It's I could read it the way you're reading it though.
Mhm.
But-
Okay.
Anyway, so I don't know how they would like to go about doing that, but I just wanted to flag that for the commission more than anything. That's all I have. Okay.
Yeah, and on top of that, I was contacted by CMO, the city manager's office, about if the count was correct. They were just making sure that they were going to be putting up the notice for the right amount of seats, so I confirmed that with them, so there will be a winter round of interviews, I guess. Yeah.
So there'd be 2 positions open, right?
Yes,
Right,
correct.
so it's 8 currently. Yeah.
There's like
Okay. So what, did we know when that window opens closest?
No, not yet. It just said winter
Yeah.
recruitment.
All right, any takers on meeting up at public
Yes,
house?
absolutely.
Okay, a couple takers. If anybody on the call is able to join us. We're gonna head over to public house after this for a drink or whatever. Otherwise, I think next meeting would be the last Thursday of January.
last Tuesday of January.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Already pushing that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
We get to stay touch. Yeah, I'll come join you.